Hey gang, welcome back. Today I am talking to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I am at the International Enneagram Association Conference. In a minute, we're going to get into the traits, the money monsters for Type 5, the miser, and the moot. But I just want to give you a quick update on what's going on here, which is really exciting. If you ever get a chance to come to the IEA, the International Enneagram Association Conference, I highly recommend it. I'm having an absolute blast. I got to hang out with Russ Hudson, he actually DJ'd the gala dinner last night, and we partied till about past midnight. So I'm a little tired this morning, a little worn out. Only had a few hours of sleep, and of course, at a conference, it's just great to meet people and running around. So it's been an exhausting couple of days, but absolutely fabulous experience. I also loved getting to talk to Mario Sikora. He had a wonderful presentation on the instinctual biases, and there's always something to learn. No matter how much of an expert you become in the Enneagram, it's a system with infinite depth, and we've only just begun to explore all the different parts and applications of it. And it was really great to hang out with two of the real legends of the Enneagram, Jerry Wagner and Patrick O'Leary. They had a wonderful presentation on the history of the Enneagram, which I didn't know some of the some of the drama around it, all the lawsuits and people suing each other for, this and that, just trivial reasons. But there was actually a lot of contention in the earlier years around, all kinds of stuff. And so thank God that got resolved. People fought the good fight, and no one was able to copyright the Enneagram, which was it was the Eureka Institute early in the early days was trying to sue people for using their ideas, which it was weird and not based in any fact. So, at any rate, all those lawsuits got resolved successfully, but it was fun to hear about the drama around it, and really just to hang out, have lunch and dinner with people with these greats like Patrick O'Leary, especially. We got to develop a nice friendship, I hope, and continue that. And also, Patrick O'Leary gave a great presentation on why the wings don't fly. I'm not 100% convinced that that's true, but I'm leaning in that camp. He had some compelling arguments why the wing theory doesn't really hold up under scrutiny, and it's sort of an add-on that kind of got slapped onto the Enneagram. It took off, but maybe it may not really be a valid way of looking at it, which I don't cover in my book, so I'm good on that. But at any rate, so again, if you get to come to IEA, great program. Everyone, the level of professionalism here is outstanding. Most of the people here have highly knowledgeable of the Enneagram, so the conversation level was just really stimulating and exciting, and just had an absolute blast. All right, let's jump into it for Type 5. We're going to talk about the money monsters, the miser, the moot, and the miser. So Type 5s, they have a sacred wound of internalized fear. So we all had a psychological umbilical cord that connected us to our caregivers at birth, and that has to be cut and by one of the big three emotional knives. That's to be anger, sadness, or fear. And so you fives got cut with fear that you then internalized and directed it towards yourself, feeling like you weren't competent or capable to sort of manage the incredible kind of intrusive pressures and stressors coming at you. And so you kind of retreat into your mind and try to figure everything out in your head, and then sometimes fail to act or engage with the world. You're so busy taking information in as the investigator, trying to figure it all out before you actually engage with the world, that you sometimes get lost inside that space and have a hard time putting things into action. And then, of course, fives tend to have I call them the compact car, because they have a small gas tank for social interaction. But again, they can fit into tight mental spaces where the rest of us fear to tread. Think, Albert Einstein was a classic five, and there's some great financial people, Warren Buffett, other greats who are fives, who take their knowledge and really apply it to one discipline, become extreme experts in it, which is where they kind of get their dopamine hit from, and then can take that knowledge and that wisdom and bring it to the world in love and service to help ease some of our suffering or solve some of our great mysteries. And they're the real truth seekers. But when it comes to money, there's two unhealthy ways that fives engage with money. They can be either anxiously attached to it or fearfully avoidant, which I call the attachment theory of money. So I'm gonna read a little bit from my book here, because I don't really have the energy to try to wing this morning. But I'm looking at, if those of you who have the book, I'm on page 232. We're looking at the traits of the miser and the moot. And so when fives become avoidant around money, I call them moot. So moot means irrelevant. They think it's fundamentally, they don't like to engage with it. They think that the world inside their head is far more interesting, so they have a sort of a minimalist approach to money, and tend to push it away, thinking that if they don't like dealing with it, or they feel insecure about it, they just treat it as fundamentally irrelevant. They don't want to feel incompetent at something, so they think money just doesn't matter in some fundamental level. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Let me just go back, and that was the miser. So we're on 228. So we've got the money avoid moot. They can have that extreme Spartan ascetic lifestyle, and just don't want to deal with the practical realities of earning, saving, investing beyond the mere minimum. Sorry, I'm going to be messing this one up today because I'm just so tired. But we've got the traits of the moot. We've got the masochistic minimalism. These moots take the concept of less is more to such an extreme that their living spaces can make a monk's cell look like a 5-star hotel suite. They pare down their minimal possessions to the bare essentials, like maybe a mattress on the floor, a few dog-eared academic texts, and a hot plate if they're feeling particularly bougie. Anything more than that is just clutter standing between them and their precious mental pursuits. Now, if you're a moot, challenge yourself to upgrade one item in your living space each month. Start small, maybe replace that sad flat pillow with a comfy new one. Think of it as an experiment in how minor comforts affect your cognitive function. You might find that a slightly cozy environment actually enhances your mental pursuits. Oh, and again, I'm always pushing these to a bit of an extreme, just partly for laughs and partly to make a point. So, again, this is taking things to the far end of the unhealthy traits for a 5. And then we've got the penny pinching panic. These money avoiders are the miserly grandparents of the Enneagram, capable of stretching a single tea bag for a week. Now, instead, dear moots, maybe set up a mad money account. Now, and by that I mean allocate a small percentage of your income, like maybe 1% or 2%, for guilt-free spending on non-essentials. Think of it as funding for field research into the world of material possessions. Then, we've got ledger-loathing sickness. These folks would rather wrestle a rabid wolverine than sit down and deal with their financial paperwork and long-term planning. The mere thought of it makes their skin crawl, and heaven forbid they should ever consider outsourcing the drudgery to a financial advisor. That would be an unforgivable breach of their precious autonomy, not to mention a wasteful expense. Now, moots, for a practical solution, maybe create a spreadsheet that turns financial management into a strategy game. Assign points to point values to savings goals and financial tasks. May treat it like a role-playing game where you're leveling up your financial wizard character, and before you know it, you'll be min-maxing your budget like a pro. Now, we also have affluence aversion disorder. Now, moots couldn't care less about material wealth or social status symbols. All that matters is honing their expertise in their chosen field. Besides, driving a nice car might get them a date, and we can't have that, can we? Now, to overcome their affluence aversion, perhaps try reframing wealth as a knowledge acquisition tool. Instead of viewing money as a path to vapid materialism, maybe see it as a means to fund your intellectual pursuits. That nice car? It's a mobile research station. That designer bag? It's a stylish carrying case for your rare books. Now we've got radical risk rejection reflex for moots. Now, some moots make your stereotypical octogenarian retiree look like a thrill-seeking adrenaline junkie. They wouldn't touch any sort of financial risk or investment with a 10-foot pole. The mere thought of losing even a penny of their hard-earned savings is enough to send them into a full-blown panic attack. They will stick with their tried-and-true savings accounts and CDs. Thank you very much. No risky stocks or speculation for this crowd. Now, as a solution, maybe start with micro investments. Use apps that round up your purchase and invest the spare change. Now, it's a low risk and allows you to dip your toes into the investment world without feeling like you're betting the farm. Think of this as conducting a long-term experiment in financial growth. Yeah, capture the power of compound interest, fives. You guys like ideas, so study how compound interest works. It will change your life and change how you look at investing. Then we've got knowledge hoarding hermeneutics. Now, if you need to look up the word hermeneutics, you may not be a 5. These moots won't waste time and energy pursuing something as pedestrian as financial gain when they could be expanding the frontiers of human knowledge. After all, money isn't a platonic ideal, so why bother with it? What about applying your love of complex systems to finance? Diving into the fascinating world of economic theory or the psychology of money, which is, of course, something I love, and this is what the whole book is about. Maybe treat financial literacy as another field to master and hone your expertise in. After all, to understand money is to understand a fundamental aspect of human behavior and societal structure, something I think fives would really resonate. Then we've got resonate with. Then we've got defiant DIY disorder. We've got the money avoidant fives will white knuckle their way through their money woes to maintain their precious illusion of complete self-reliance. Instead, reframe seeking financial advice as consulting an expert in the field. Just as you'd reference a respected authority in your area of expertise, view financial advisors as subject matter experts whose knowledge you can absorb and analyze. You're not surrendering your autonomy, you're expanding your knowledge base. I should have plugged my book at the beginning. Again, I'm reading from Taming Your Money Monster, 9 Paths to Money Mastery with the Enneagram, as always. And if you ever need help figuring out your Enneagram type, there's also a great code that you can use. Sorry, my alarm is going off. And I'll put that in the show notes. There's a QR code here. You can check that out. I highly recommend it. It's the IEQ9 Integrative Enneagram Test. And I get a kickback when you take that test. So thank you for doing that if you're interested. Okay, that wraps up the Moot for us. Now we're going to jump into the Miser. We've got misers are the fives who are so gripped by the primal fear of not having enough to take care of themselves that they essentially transform their bank accounts into personal fortresses. These are the Ebenezer Scrooges of the Enneagram, the miserly misanthropes who will pinch a penny until it screams and begs for mercy. These money-anxious fiscal hoarders don't just save for a rainy day, they stockpile funds like they're preparing for a biblical flood. They track every cent to ensure their self-sufficiency and protect them from the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. In the process, they fail to live fully. Forget about indulging in simple pleasures or anything that might make life more comfortable. And really, it's a tragic fate, really. These brilliant cerebral fives so paralyzed by fear that they deprive themselves of life's most essential pleasures. Now, misers labor under the delusion that money is the key to shielding themselves from all their fears and anxieties, because fives live in a great deal of fear. They're in the fear triad, of course. And if they can just amass enough wealth, then illness, injury, and even death might all be vanquished. Of course, no amount of money can permanently protect us from the fundamental realities of the human condition. If only the anxious hoarder could learn to temper their avarice with a touch of generosity, which fives really need to work on, and find the courage to step out from behind their financial fortress and truly engage with the world. Again, the point of having wealth is to use it as a tool for love and service to a suffering world. So if you've got all this cash, fives, and you're sitting on it, you're not doing anything good with it, then you're losing the opportunity to really engage fully with the spiritual adventure that your money can provide. And they may discover that the path to true serenity lies not just in accumulating wealth, but in cultivating meaningful connections and embracing the full spectrum of the human experience. Now, for example, Jeffrey Holt was a groundskeeper at a mobile home park who lived alone in a rundown trailer with little furniture, no computer, no TV, no car. However, when he died in 2023, he left behind an estate worth $3.8 million. He was likely a miser who anxiously saved money but had trouble spending any. At least, and here's the good part of the story, at least Jeffrey Holt donated his fortune to his hometown of Hinsdale, New Hampshire, which is coincidentally named after Ebenezer Hinsdale. How's that for a synchronicity? Okay, here's some traits of the miser. We've got my precious psychosis. Think Lord of the Rings, Gollum, my precious. Some misers are so paranoid by the thought of maybe, possibly, potentially not having enough resources that they become like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, preserving their precious portfolio. They will anxiously earn, save, and invest for their precious, but not for anything or anyone else, leaving them rich in cash but poor in life satisfaction. Instead, try creating a life experience fund. Think of it as field research into the human condition. And who knows, that cooking class or salsa dancing lesson might just provide unexpected insights for your next theoretical breakthrough. Now we've got the autonomy-addicted ascetic. These money-anxious folks resist depending on others, financially or otherwise, or having anyone depend on them. They might refuse to share financial information with their spouse out of fear of being controlled or appearing incompetent. Now, as a hack, try reframing interdependence. This is the goal of course, the Enneagram, moving us from independence, relying on ourselves, to that ultimate interdependence, seeing everything as one interconnected, and you as a beautiful part, as a fractal piece of the divine. Now, try reframing interdependence as a complex system worthy of study. Start small, maybe join a book club or rent a space in a community garden. Observing how pooling resources, be it knowledge or tomatoes, can lead to greater outcomes. Consider it an experiment in symbiotic relationships. You're not losing autonomy, you're gaining data points on human interaction. Then for the 5, the miser, we've got hoarding hysteria. Of course, all the five's financial anxiety and obsessive resource hoarding stems from that deep-seated fear of depletion, that primal terror of being incompetent. So these misers hoard and hoard some more. To combat this tendency, maybe set up a generosity fund alongside your regular savings. Use it exclusively to help others like your friends or family, community, church, whatever it is that floats your boat. Think of it as building a diversified social fund to complement your financial one. Yeah, it's also called tithing. Okay, we've got then penny pinching perfectionism. When it comes to their financial decision making, these misers take overthinking to a whole new level of neurotic indecision. They can spend hours, days even, meticulously researching every possible investment option or purchase decision, weighing the risks and benefits as if the very fabric of reality will unravel if they don't find the perfect way to allocate their resources. Now, instead, implement a decision-making framework with time limits. For purchases, say under $100, maybe give yourself 5-10 minutes to decide. For $100 or $1,000, maybe an hour or two. And if it's over $1,000, maybe a day or a week. Treat it like a timed exam you're training your brain to make efficient decisions under pressure. Remember, in finance as in science, sometimes good enough data is more valuable than perfect data that comes too late. And then, okay, we've got the future fiscal fear-mongering. While prudent financial planning and a strong emergency fund are essential, misers have an unhealthy obsession with worst-case financial scenarios. They don't just worry about their future stability, they practically wallow in it, conjuring up vivid apocalyptic visions of total destruction and ruin. Now, for a fix, channel your vivid imagination maybe into positive scenarios. For every doomsday scenario you conjure, force yourself to imagine an equally probable, detailed positive outcome. Then, critically analyze both, as you're so good at. You might find that your positive scenarios are just as likely, if not more so, than the negative, likely to come about than your negative ones. Maybe treat it like peer reviewing your own apocalyptic papers. Okay, so that wraps up for the miser and the moot for the 7. If you want to figure out how to become a money master, how do you overcome that, check out my book, Taming Your Money Monster, 9 Paths to Money Mastery with the Enneagram. And if you're interested in individual coaching or you would like a good keynote speaker, you can follow the link in the show notes to my website, douglynham.com, and you can contact me, and I'd be happy to come talk to your organization, whatever it may be. I love talking, I love teaching, love being in front of a crowd. So if you've got one, would like to learn teach your community and your wider audience how to tame your money monsters, please reach out. Okay, gang, until next time, I'm heading down to breakfast and to the opening of the last day of the International Enneagram Association Conference. Again, that's a great event. Check it out. I'm having a blast. Hope to see you here next time, maybe hopefully next year when they do it again. Be well, and peace and blessings to everybody out there.